But you didn't know it was going to go like quite up and down like that?
No.
You didn't know that at all?
No,
That's kind of incredible.
no, I never knew, ever.
But you're following the rules,
I followed the rule. Yeah,
and that's where it led you.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of incredible.
It is kind of
That's a little bit hard to believe.
I know it is, right? I can
Yeah.
prove it though. I can absolutely prove
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I don't know, and I don't take liberties. I took a liberty one time, but only because it was so annoying I couldn't get past it. There was a
Uh-huh.
line that in my mind should have been perfectly vertical, a 90-degree upward angle should have been, but it was like 89, and that drove me crazy. So I changed that. But that was really it. I don't know. I just follow it.
Because even this shape of, that's New Justice, No Peace, and the alternating colors and what that does to your retina, this kind of,
That's totally planned.
that
That I
absolutely-
do plan. I do plan.
the colors.
Yeah. But not at first. I mean, I learned that it happened because I did the first one. And then I was like, oh, well, okay, now we need to use that to our advantage. So I use it to my advantage. One of the second ones I did, I discovered reflections. That if you could reflect on the floor, you could double the size of your installation effectively as someone experiences it. And so now I'm always looking for that too. When I come to a site book, I'm looking for how does the light work in the space? Can I move it off the wall and into the space somehow by using reflection? I was kind of hoping that in your place, we might get some right up against the wall edges, right
Yeah.
where the points come down.
Yeah,
And
and you
it-
get it there.
Yeah, there's like a little wee bit, right? And you can see how it changes the shadows on the wood floor, which is good. It's a little extra bonus. I like that. Last night I noticed one other thing that I didn't plan for, but it is here. If you take a if you take a photo from here, looking out that window,
Mhm.
and this piece is called No Justice, No Peace. All right, you can see the parking deck sign, except you only see the bottom, K-I-N-G, King. That's all you said, like in that photo I sent you yesterday, it
Yes.
says King.
That is pretty.
Isn't it?
I see it.
Yeah, right?
absolutely.
It's like, what? That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that. Didn't plan for that also,
Yeah.
but really great. So now I
And
got
the fact that Martin Luther King really voiced that phrase.
Oh, yeah, you said it.
for us.
You said it. And yeah, that is so, those
I'm
kinds
going
of
to-
things, when things
We
like that
need to take a
happen.
really good photograph of that.
Yeah, because it was a kind of a mistake. I just saw it in the image. And then was trying to figure out what it was. Where did that come from? King. Yeah.
So I'm getting back to what we were talking about the colors. So
Yeah.
originally your site-specific tape installation, you used only a single color,
Right. Yeah.
often black.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
True. Yeah, mostly because I just get confused easily. And color is something that I eliminate from my work every 10 years or so, and then don't work with color for about 10 years. So I'm just coming out of a period where I wasn't using color at all for quite a while. I think you became familiar with my work during that time. Almost everything was black and white, super neutral. And I think I spend a lot of time doing that because I get overwhelmed by color. It's such a pretty face, and I can't I get distracted by it.
Mhm.
So I just eliminate it. But now, gosh, I need color. I mean, who doesn't need some color right now? I need a little color.
Well, it was such an interesting kind of bit of information that you sent last night about purple
Yes,
and all of the, iconography that's associated with that color.
sure, yes. It's a
And
color
is
of
it-
protest.
Is this the first time you've used it in a major work?
Oh, yeah, yes, yes. You mean the color purple?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Color, yeah. Color is difficult for me in the first place, but purple? Oh, man, I mean, purple's hard to handle for me. And that, orange can do that for me too, or yellow, something really heavily saturated. Purple especially, I mean, it's just, it's a difficult color, so I haven't often wanted to use it, but this time it was just such a intuitive choice, when I looked at all the colors available. And I'm really happy that I listened to my intuition, because it turns out that that color is a color associated with women's suffrage, as is the gold and the white, and I love that the black is in there, so we've got a little bit of, everybody's been protesting these days.
Yeah.
And the resiliency that is associated with the color purple, the resiliency to fight for a cause and not stop, to be persistent.
If we have a chance to pull up the painting called Justice, the purple large oil painting that's
Oh, it's called protest.
protest, that's a part of the dozen paintings that are on exhibit in the exhibition. And it's one of the largest ones. That's really a kind of deep dive into purple in that painting.
It is. That painting, I had a love-hate relationship with that painting the whole time. I mean, I still do, really. And I call it the purple grape. And I kind of love it and hate it. I love it and I kind of hate that I love it, because it's very purple. And in the morning, it's very blue purple. And in the afternoon, it's very red purple, because it has a lot of fluorescent colors and also a lot of interference colors. I'm using fluorescence and interference colors a great deal now in my paintings, because I think I want to give people a reason to make a physical visit in proximity to a made thing. Because making a thing is really additive for me as a human being, and I think that people have relationships with objects and get a lot of joy out of objects. I mean, for example, last night I went home and I was exhausted. I get home and there's this halfway broken box from UPS sitting on my doorstep. And so I drag it inside and it's half crushed and I'm like, well, I better open it up and see. I didn't remember ordering anything, but I opened it up and there's a teddy bear inside. A beautiful fuzzy little teddy bear. But it wasn't for me. It was my next door neighbor's order. But I got to experience this teddy bear just smiling up at me inside this box. And I got to say, it was pretty great. It would have been, if a friend had sent me a picture of a teddy bear, I'd have been like, oh, that's sweet. But it was not at all the same as like opening up the box and having the surprise of coexisting with a little smiling teddy bear for a moment. I mean, I know it's simple, but at the moment, it really made a difference to me. And I kind of think that when you go to museums or you go to art venues or you see a mural outside or you experience a piece of music that's played by an actual person standing in front of you, it's very different than listening to a recording or a digital thing. And I think that's one of the things that's happening here in this space. Both like thinking about how you present work and also how work is made, that we do have to consider physical objects and how they exist, not only in the physical world, but how they exist in the digital world. Can the object that you're making exist well or kind of well in both? I don't know. I have that question in my mind a lot. I assume other artists do too, that are trying to deal with this.
Well, certainly these two tape installations are ephemeral. They won't live beyond this exhibition.
Nope, they won't.
And so.
Michael, if you were to give
Excuse me? Is there a question?
you a break, I think.
we didn't quite understand.
There's no question.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's right, I'm missing line.
I mean, yes, and one of the questions, that the exhibition asks is, how can we connect during this time?
Right.
And one of the things that, that we've had the opportunity to experience, in advance of the exhibition opening on March 12th, is the scale of these works. And that's something that I think is very difficult to translate into digital. That's one of the things I think you lose. But then also the tactile qualities of the paintings. I just always feel like it's always a whole dimension that's lacking. When you,
In the digital?
when you look at paintings digitally, no matter how good the photography.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah. Real texture versus, depicted texture.
Right.
Right. I've wondered about that in the world of VR. Like virtual reality is going to be the next space. I mean, it already is. I'm just late to the game. But I think that, as a painter making paintings in that space, what does that mean? And can that, is that something that can happen? I mean, if you can think it, it can happen. It's just a question of how to get there. There will be younger artists, many younger artists that will show us the way.
I don't know. I keep thinking of that steak dinner in the Matrix. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if we'll really get there, even if it's edible.
That is a good, yeah. Art is a lot like that steak dinner. I mean, because you're eliminating, when you make a piece of art, like say a painting, you are making something for someone to, that you hope they will find delicious and consume with great relish. And there's something really wonderful about that, because it's not about ownership, it's about experience with a physical thing. And that steak dinner, I know exactly what you mean, and he knows that it's fake. And he's willing to do it anyway. And truly, it's all fake. You exist inside of a dark space, inside this, the only reason you think that there's something here is because your eyes are telling you so, and your ears are telling you so, but really your brain is inside a dark space. So, like how you make sense of it is all a simulation anyway. So, I don't know. I mean, you can slice that so many different ways. Is a steak dinner real? Is a fake steak dinner any less real if you experience it the same? I mean, maybe, but does it matter? I don't know. I love the idea about multiples and real and fake and authenticity. What's genuine, what isn't? Especially when we talk about digital things. If you make one, well, like in the world of NFTs now, there's one digital thing on the internet, you have rights to it, you can own it. But, somebody can take a screenshot or whatever, there it is, it's multiple, it's reproduced. Is it not real because you didn't pay for it? You still own it in a way, not on paper, but you have a copy of it. It's a curious, it's something that just keeps winding back around for me over and over again.
Well, I think there's something very kind of central to your work that has to do with, playing with this, notion of like, especially in the installations, the ephemeral nature of it. And this, which you could associate with the ephemeral nature of, say, the digital world, which is always in movement, which is always coming up on a screen and appearing on a screen.
Right.
Not being able to hold onto it really, existing in a cloud.
Yeah.
And something about these works relate to that in that they have a sense of movement, and one understands that they're made out of a material that is, a very basic, simple material. And there's a kind of dance that you orchestrate with these tape pieces, I think.
Yeah. I think they're gonna go in a particular way, and I plan them out very carefully and methodically, and then I get to some place and every one of them has this. There'll be a little spot, everything's going along just gangbusters, and then I'm like, what? Like, that won't work, and you don't realize it until you've gotten all the way there. And, you know, until you've got 96 other feet done, and then you're down to the last foot, and you're like, man, how did I end up with 3 going this way and 4 going that way? Somewhere in that 96 feet, I screwed up, but I can't see it. I don't know where it is, and so then I have to kind of invent something at the end, and it's really my only contribution to the work. Because otherwise, it's just made from the numbers. It's made from the phrase, it's made using the program uses an algorithm. I just am a draftsman, getting it up on the wall. But then when something like that happens, that's when I have to fix it. I have to sort of massage it into place. It does kind of go off the reservation a little bit there towards the rules. I have to, because that one little square foot is not going to fit in otherwise. And it's really because there's a column there, and the column meets the ceiling, and the ceiling comes out and then goes up. And I mean, it's like, it's a compound, 3-dimensional hole that this folded shape has to fit in and roll around in and still present like it's folding in a different way, even though the actual space is folding in a completely opposite direction. That's what's happening there. That sounds complicated. I mean, a picture would show everybody, be like, oh yeah, but there, you know, that's what happens. And it is like a dance. Sometimes it's like a dance, you just want to trip them and throw them down to the ground.
So have you always thought that like this kind of, that you wanted to take a step back from authorship? That essentially your work is like a set of rules, and then there's the fabrication process, but the artistic practice is setting up those rules to begin with?
Yeah, yes, I think so. I think I take it another step. I mean, I use the rules and then I make the patterns. And then the patterns to me are, because they're, you know, I was thinking about this, like, how can I describe these patterns in a more general sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you could think of any sort of pattern that might exist in your world, there's a pattern on your sheets, there's a pattern on your rug.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you generally speaking, a repeating pattern of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
It too has a set of rules. Those rules are applied to one element of it, which I would call the key. That key gets multiplied out throughout the pattern, and there you have it. And then you just stick it on anything you want. These patterns are kind of the same and a little bit different. So they can be because, okay, one more thing I would say, let's say the rug on the pattern on a rug, that's like I would think of a Photoshop image. It's a rasterized image. It's done pixel by pixel. These are vector images, meaning that they're driven by mathematical equations, more like Adobe Illustrator would be, so that you can then take that image, that vectorized image, and resize it in any way you want and use it for multiple applications. This is like that. So I could make once I have the pattern, I can make a 96-foot long thing, or I could wrap columns with it, or I could make it really small and put it on a t-shirt, or I could give it to a sculptor and they could actually fold it and make something that's a folded structure from it. Or as I've done in the past, give it to a dancer and have them create choreography based on it. Because the structures have numbers and they have angles and they have, you know, there's all sorts of information in there that is related to all the other information in it. So it's a cohesive set of numbers that says something about a thing. And from there, I release all authorship.
There was a statement that you made in the Artspiel article that I thought might relate to this. idea of parameters and the data where you it's kind of a during this past year a certain feeling that perhaps is, I mean, I know I share it and many people I've spoken to share it, this questioning of data, this questioning of these rules that we used to kind of take for granted.
Yeah, you could count on it.
And the reliability and it's not comforting anymore.
No, it isn't.
You state in this article. That, this data that you had, for 10 years been working with, within your conceptual practice, that over the past year, somehow, the relationship has changed. And that's sort of one of the shifts in Shift Happens.
Yeah, right, yes. So it shifted me to use phrases and words more rather than statistics or other sorts of gathered information that we would say has come from some sort of scientific study or has had a direct measurement that's been observed or something. Those things I used to just take as undeniable fact. Like they've been observed, they've been recorded. End of story.
Just like the light from the Duke archives, the Duke Forest archives that you found.
Exactly.
The light patterns falling on the forest floor.
Yeah.
And those were observed 50 years ago.
Yep. With a scientific piece of equipment.
Yeah.
2 guys out there turning the thermopile around, measuring it and writing it down. Right, observable fact. And I trust that. Yeah. But then when we got into the pandemic and we got into, well, before that, just the Trump era, where facts ended up starting to look like opinions a lot, where that idea that the facts are indisputable, but everybody can have their own opinion, but you can't, a fact is a fact. Well, that's a nice thing to say, but I don't know about that. I think maybe some things are out there masquerading as facts and maybe aren't. I don't know, but it got so confusing to me. I wasn't quite sure what numbers to trust anymore. So I just went to all the things that were being repeated over and over and over again. Like the phrases, unprecedented. I mean, you can't watch the news for 20 minutes and not hear unprecedented as a word. Or happy talk was like that. That's a big one. Essential worker. That one's 4 times in this show. I can't even think of all the others. There's been so many.
Torpor.
Yeah, torpor. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that actually, that's like just been a personal. Like you get traumatized and you go into a state of torpor. It's just, and of course nowadays everybody's been traumatized to some extent. And I think parts of our lives have gone still, maybe the entirety of our daily existence. But certain things we just have gone still on and haven't been able to do. I haven't exercised properly in 9 months. I got up the other day and my knees was like, oh my God, I felt like I was 70 years old. Because you're not moving, Heather. You have to move your body. It's the torpor. Yeah.
But I mean, this 96-foot installation certainly moves across the gallery.
It does. It's whipping fast. But that has to do with the energy of a bunch of people deciding that they want to take up a cause and not let it go.
Yeah.
And stand with each other, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, and just keep it rocking on and not stop. And do it peacefully with a sense of authority, a sense of sovereignty over their own freedom. To just say, no, I don't accept that. It needs to be like this. And just keep pressing the point. It's a beautiful thing to have watched during this time, to see when people get so angry that they get organized and go out and do a wonderful thing and then get up the next day and do it again. and the next day and do it again. Oh, yeah.
And the essential workers who are holding everything up in the background, you're really bringing them forward with the gold tape on these columns that are such an architectural landmark in this building.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, trying to make the invisible visible, and in this lovely gold tape, which I don't know if that shows well on the monitor or not, but in the gallery, as you walk past it, it does appear as if these columns have gold gilding, like a gold leaf on them. This tape is really doing wonders on this bumpy surface, which, it's another unknown. I didn't expect it, but it's really working really lovely. I think it's a great way to wrap the essential workers in value. In value.
I was reading an article and one of the questions was, will we get through this? And I think that something about this exhibition makes me feel like we will.
Yeah. Well,
And maybe it's that bright room that's on the other side of the wall with all of the oil paintings.
yes, the
And, and the way that you just described, some of the inflections that the wall installation makes one think of.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I hope that hopefulness is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess there's but two options. You can lay down and wait till it's all over and sit in your hole, which I did a fair amount of that. Or you can formulate some sort of a plan and get moving and figure out how to get to the next place that isn't the shitty place you're in. And sometimes just, anything can be better. Someone was telling me yesterday that they would have voted for, if given the choice between a dry, stale ham sandwich and Donald Trump for president, they would vote for the ham sandwich. And I thought to myself, yeah, I mean, in that sense, I would take something that's just better than what I have. There's times when you want to shoot for the stars, but then there's times like the pandemic where you haven't seen your friends at all. And, will I drive 45 minutes to sit with a friend on the side of a curb in a road somewhere with our masks on and just to talk? Yes, I will. Yes, I will, with no bathroom, with, nothing to eat, nothing to drink, just to sit on a curb and talk with a friend. Yes, I will do that because it matters so much more to just have something better, even if it's not a party and all of us getting together. It's meaningful, even if it's small, if it's in the right direction. And, just being able to make art again, being able to present work in a place after all of this time, not being able to put your work in a place. I think that's hugely valuable and has just I feel like a horse that's been finally let out of the barn and put into the pasture for a little bit. I can run around in the sun. It feels great. It just feels so wonderful to do that. And I'm sure that there's every artist that's hearing this is saying, yeah, I feel exactly the same. Especially performing artists. I mean, dancers and musicians. I mean, actors. I have no idea how they're keeping their minds straight, during this time, not being able to present work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a question that has really been, I've heard it from several different, curators, organization directors, and artists is the question of, how to adapt to these times.
Right.
How do we adapt? We know there are challenges, but are there silver linings? Are there any opportunities? And, we consider this to be an opportunity that you are flexible enough to kind of take on, this exhibition, which opens itself so much in so many different ways to being able to be experienced, both online and physically and in the space and outside the space, and, letting visitors, for example, participate and actually create a phrase, answer a question that would be a response to how do you feel, and that you would actually, be able to create that within your abstract idiom, create a piece that would actually be the visual map of their feelings, of their response.
Yeah, right. That's so not asked. People are asking, like people ask each other about their financial situation, their job situation. Do you have kids at home? Like those things. But nobody says, how do you feel? Only if you're really close to somebody do they ask you this. How do you feel? And that should be like, well, I don't know if it should. I'm going to shit all over everybody, but I do think that it's an important question, to know how somebody is.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because if you don't know how you feel, then you don't know what you believe and you don't know how to act. Feelings come first, and everything else kind of falls after that. So I think during this time, I had done a lot of checking in with myself. How do I feel? And I read this wonderful email I got from another artist. She sent out her newsletter. She's doing this project called the Pleasure Report. And one of the things she invited the readers to do was to think about what would make them happier right in that moment, actually in that moment, and then challenge you to do it. And I thought to myself, you know what? I want a new TV. And I don't ever really buy things very often. So that was kind of a thing. And my taxes weren't as much as I thought they were going to be this year. So I bought myself a TV. I put my kid in the car. We drove down to Walmart and I bought a TV that I wanted, that I actually wanted to get home, kick the other one to the curb and put that brand new lovely TV there. And I am genuinely still made joyful by this television set, genuinely joyful. It was not just a momentary thing. So I encourage everybody to try that exercise. What will make me feel happier right in this moment? Because I was surprised that it was actually an object. It wasn't like, well, of course you got to make it something that's achievable. You can say, well, I want to have a dinner party at my house. Well, you can't, so get over it. Yeah. But you can get a new TV, maybe. Or make yourself a really good meal. Yesterday I got home and I was like, what's going to make me happy? So I really want a fresh cooked meal. So I made one. I didn't get to eat until 9:30, but it was because I decided I wanted to make this long cooking soup, But that's also creative. I mean, it's a creative act just as much as, this is, or anything else. You're trying to be responsive to your current situation. And man, the current situation is not at all what it used to be. The artists are home, but how much can you actually work? I mean, I got lots of time in my studio, but that's because I'm sitting with my son while he's in virtual academy. I'm not making work. I'm teaching, and I think that I suspect that this reality is something that everyone has been, well, not everyone, but a lot of people have been dealing with just a difference in their daily lives. And it's really nice to just say that simple thing. What's going to make me happy right now? It's a good exercise.
I've seen visited your exhibitions and seen responses to your installation work. And I hope that we are able to, observe that also in the gallery, that people really love to just walk through the space that's been articulated by the wall murals.
Well, they certainly can. I mean, it's big enough here to do that and not even feel like you're going to be in someone else's space. And that was something that Jill talked about first early on. Like, consider that. Consider that when people come, there's going to be fewer people here. And we're going to have to design a flow to make sure that people don't, are socially distanced, that they got everything they need to be safe here. And that it changes how you think about the work when you're thinking about what could be made, because it already kind of comes with some limitations that weren't there before, that we've never had before. I've never had to consider that two people could not stand together in the same space looking at something right here. They can't. We can't stand like that. We have to be 6 feet apart. And, it might as well be like this. So you can't, that really does radically change things. So it makes sense to do something that gives you a long view. Something that then tries to tie together the larger spaces. It's a higher level view of the entirety of the 5,000 square feet, rather than just, what do I put on this wall? Yeah. And of course, you're the one that figured out how all that beauty happened, because I only knew a couple pieces of that puzzle, but then you figured out how to do it so that, we were getting conversations from one end of the gallery to the other in a way that really, really just makes it very cohesive, I think.
Yes, one thing I think is going to be interesting is how the essential worker on the last column is going to not interfere, but be a part of those two paintings. It's going to meet the essential worker painting and the protest painting.
Yeah, they'll overlap visually, for sure. Yeah. And also the green one, unless, back there. Yeah.
But I really see it just as being a kind of a connection.
It's also kind of a confusion though too. I mean, it's a lot like battleship design, right? The razzle dazzle battleship patterns. I mean, they look a lot like this wall. I could have just called it razzle dazzle, but then that would have been interesting. But the idea behind that is that it attenuates your visual system so that you can't tell what's in front and what's behind, where things are in visual space. Yeah. And boy, that feeling is not unfamiliar over the last year, not knowing where things are, what they are, how they work together. I mean, everything has just been like hard to understand, confusing. Yeah.
You've spoken to me, one thing I've been thinking about a lot, you've spoken to me a couple of times about that shift that you just mentioned a little earlier about language, the shift that, that phrases and language became suddenly really very important.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that, from the Word Maps exhibition and from, my understanding of your earliest work, that you are a reader, and language has always been a part of your work to me. But it's almost like, I feel like it's almost like we've learned a new vocabulary over the past year. It's like it's a new dictionary. And it's almost like
it's a different system.
Yeah. but maybe it's also the underpinnings, the idea that, you know, this real sense of, you know, you're not, that where is the truth? And that, and this kind of sense that people don't, my truth is not your truth. That seems to be very radical. And it seems to be a huge break from, you know, Walter Cronkite just coming on in black and white and
Oh, yeah.
everybody across America listening and believing.
Yep. What was his sign off every night? I can't remember. He said the same
I
thing
can't
every night.
remember either,
I can't remember.
but you know,
But I trusted him. Everybody trusted him.
yeah,
Yeah, if he said it, it was true.
yeah,
Yeah. And it was. That's because it actually was. I don't think we were making it up. I mean, I don't know. I've not ever really researched him, but I haven't heard any, you know, scandalous material about Walter Cronkite telling lies for years on the
yeah.
news. You know, nobody talks about it. I'm sure somebody's looked into things like that. Everybody looks into everything, you know. Yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah, it is difficult to know. I think I haven't really, I think I felt more comfortable working with numbers in the past rather than working with language as much as I have. Because I read a lot, but I'm not really scholarly about anything.
Uh,
I read anything, really. I mean, the back of a cereal box is just as interesting to me as a user's manual. I really like users.
Montana?
I love users manuals and technical manuals, but I also, you know, read nonfiction and I read, yeah, you know, really old fictional work. Like I love old science fiction from before we got off the planet, you know, when we were still thinking about what would be on the moon, and that, you know, there were people living on Mars and all the various things. And like I love the idea of us extending ourselves into this world that is somehow benevolent to us. That feels really hopeful to me. I love that, the idea that we are beyond, that already I want to extend beyond that veil, that edge that we already know. And here we just found ourselves kind of picked up and plopped down over the edge. In where, in what land? Crazy land, everything like moving backwards or not being, it doesn't make sense. You know, for someone, for a politician, to actually state factually and with you know, without, you know, that they could do criminal things and that they actually did a criminal thing and they're admitting that they did a criminal thing, and then nothing happens to them. Nothing at all. Nobody even slaps them on the hand. Like, that makes you feel crazy. I mean, that makes me feel like I'm being gaslighted. I mean, it's like, wait a minute, do I see what's going on? I mean, I think I do, right? Like, he did a thing that's illegal, and when you do a thing that's illegal, you're held responsible. I mean, I would be. So I've had a lot of hard time with that because none of that's made sense. And it's not just, you know, not just one person, an isolated incident. It's been kind of like, oh, permeating society at every level. Yeah, it's confusing.
Do you need to move to the next slide?
No, I've gotten I'm actually kind of confused myself here. There's an angle here that doesn't make sense to me because it's not running at 90 degrees across. So there's I can see that I need to make one little trim here, but then I can also extend that and say that that line is not right either because I can see that it's not cut out at 90 degrees. It should be 90 degrees to this angle. And this should be cut 90 degrees to that, and this should be cut 90 degrees to that.
So it's, yeah, so you
And you know, that's just because that's my rule. Like, you can cut the tape any way you want it. But if you want if you want all of your lines to match up, when I get all the way around and then I come back and I need to connect to that, actually that one won't, but these will. It'll be right there. It'll be a stub and it'll come right in. It might be off a little bit up or down, but generally speaking, it'll fit there. But only if I do this correctly. If I do this part of it wrong, that will not work. That will not work. And if I don't do it here, but I do it everywhere else, then it'll stick out like a sore thumb, like it's doing right there. See how it's sticking out? You can tell it's wrong. You can tell just by looking at it. There's something wrong there. You can feel it, right?
It's almost like it's turning.
Yeah, it's sitting in space differently. It's not right. Yeah, a lot of times I just start, these little kind of things, I can fix, like, I immediately know what's wrong with this. But only because I faced that problem so many times, and then I tear it off and I do it again, and I tear it off and I do it again, and I tear it off and do it again, and then all of a sudden it feels right. And when it feels right, then I understand, I go, well, how come it feels right now and it didn't feel right before? It's not like I looked in a book and said, oh, well, because it has to be a 90-degree angle across the, but what I notice is that every time I do it right, it feels right. I come across at a 90-degree angle. There's a rule for it, and it seems to work. I mean, it's the kind of thing that if I knew a mathematician, I'd ask them if that's a thing, because it's probably a thing. Because another thing I notice about these things is that if I run when I'm trying to figure out the spacing, so that my tape line ends exactly here and exactly there, and there's equal space in between. At first, when I was using the 1-inch tape, then I was using a 1/2-inch tape, a 1/4-inch tape, a 1.5-inch tape. I'll even use a 2-inch tape. Here's the really unique thing that happens. It always ends up fitting. And I don't know why that is. There must be some sort of mathematical thing for it, because I'm not trying very hard. Like and yet it does. Like, look how it just, it ends where it's supposed to, and then there's actually another line right underneath here that this is directly on. So if I start there, whatever, like if I've got a diamond shape that comes from here to here, and there's a dividing line here underneath the tape, you can't see it. I know to start that one first and put it directly in the middle. And then just go ahead and go to the end. And it always fits, and I don't know why it always fits with the equal spaces. I don't get it. There's got to be a mathematical reason for it. Maybe maybe mathematicians should work with artists, because I really doubt that a mathematician is going to sit and work with tape all day long to get to some intuitive thing to say, hey, have you ever noticed that this thing does this thing? Because if you're working on paper with something, it's a lot like making a sketch. When you're actually putting a material into a physical space, it fights you. It always fights you. You have to get it to bend to your will, or you to its. And,
so this
it usually
diamond
wins.
going down, it's going to work out. You just know.
Oh, yeah. Just like how when I got to that last corner, I knew I was in trouble. None of the rest of you knew, though. I thought it was going to be just fine, and I was like, no. See, like, this one's way too early for me to know. I'm not in panic mode yet, because I can easily match this edge to the other edge and to that edge. The edge I'm going to be concerned about is this one. When face A, well, let's see, this is face B, so this could be face D. When D meets B, it could be complicated. But see, I think ahead on these things though too, because if you'll notice, there's right along these edges here, I've eliminated them, right? So if you think about how, how this
It's
thing,
just points that are made.
right? See the points, and then see they don't really, they don't need to match up. So see, I try to work with the pattern as it exists, and then eliminate the possibility for me to screw it up as much as I can before I say it's a final design. Yeah, because I'm not very exacting when I'm putting the tape on. And I don't want to have to be, because then it just wouldn't be fun anymore. So see, you start on one and then you just keep going around until you finish it. And then I'll start from here and then I'll go, so I'm constantly going from one to the other, checking one facet to the next. So when you do one of these, you can't just start anywhere. You have to find a place that you know is true. And that one place is where you start the pattern and then follow the rules about the 90-degree crossing in the middle fold lines. And you can't really screw it up if you follow those lines. You follow
So
those
this
two
one, you
rules.
just have to cut out the center a little bit.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Here, look, I'll fix it, right? And then we'll feel so much better when we see it fixed. So I'll cut across this one. And so I'm measuring this edge to this one and looking at it and seeing that it's exactly the same. I'm gonna cut from where this line comes in to there. It's a little geometry going on here. Don't want to cut too much. All right, so there I've cut that line, but now I've got to cut across this one because it's also incorrect. Get that. Okay, go from that intersection to this one. And then again, this one is 90 degrees over that, but it's got to also meet with this tape, so into this line. So I'll cut there, go to that line. And it looks like I'm going to need to cut a little bit more out of this other shape. Doop. And then, well, I don't know, let's just take that part out first. So at this point, then you can just kind of lift out the offensive material. See? See how much better? See how much better? Yeah. It's yeah. So you end up with some variable widths using this method. There's a couple ways to handle it. You can either leave everything the same width and just say it's going to be the same width. And then what that does is it offsets everything from the drawing a little bit, which is okay if you remember that that's what's happening. But I don't often remember, I'll forget, especially if it's a multi-day thing. So I just cut the tape thinner so that it'll work. And then sometimes, like in this one, there are several little tiny sections where, because of the way the nature of the material and how it turns on a physical shape, it ends up needing to vary from that 1 inch up to 2 inches in order to occupy the space that it needs to be in. Like in that corner, right down at the very bottom, it did it over there. And right here, see, it needs to be smaller. But this can be the right size and the spaces can all be maintained. But when it turns around the corner, sometimes the angle is at such a, I end up doubling the tape over in order to make the thing connect at the end the way it needs to. That's something I'm really excited about for the how do you feel? Because that's going to let me do a whole bunch of them really fast. So I'll be able to play with the tape. And I've got boxes and boxes of colored tapes. I mean, every color in the rainbow, really. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to have, have some small, like my size walls like this, and then just tape out a bunch of emotional responses from people and put them in a physical shape with a color and, make something tangible of an intangible emotion from a person. I think that sounds great. I'm hoping that I'll get very inventive with the tape.
Yeah, and we're hoping as we sign off for this second Open Studio program with Heather Gordon at Greenhill for the Shift Happens exhibition, we are hoping that if you want to participate in How Do You Feel and have Heather Gordon create a tape installation with your response to this question, go to Greenhill's Twitter handle @GreenhillNC, #HowDoYouFeel. We will see you again tomorrow from 1 to 2 o'clock, and we'll see how Heather has progressed on this installation. Bye.